Am I the a-hole for reminding my parents their favorite daughter is the criminal and not me? I, 16 female, have an older sister Casey, 18 female. She was always the golden child who could do nothing wrong, while I could never do anything right. Casey also hated me. Not sure why, but she used to make up stuff to get me into trouble and our parents always believed her. Nobody else did, which I think made it worse between us. She wanted everyone to see her the way our parents did, but she was always pretty mean to others and spoiled and entitled. While most of the family saw how my parents treated me versus Casey, and they saw how my parents let Casey treat me. Some examples for those who wonder: locking me in the car and refusing to let me out, throwing food I was eating on the floor, taking stuff out of my hand and saying it was hers now, which included money, locking me outside when it was raining, throwing my stuffy collection out my bedroom window in the rain when we had family over, refusing to let me sit down near her. Some things Casey accused me of wrongly are: throwing shit in the neighbor's yard, this was her and the neighbors even said so; throwing paint on our parents' car, that was her and there was proof; stealing money from our parents, eating her food, which our parents bought especially for her and nobody can touch, ruining her homework, pissing in her and my parents' bedrooms. I got punished for this stuff. Nothing I ever said or did would get my parents to believe me. My grandparents grew so concerned they tried to take custody of me through court but were denied custody, and they were told a home with both my parents would always take priority over extended family. I didn't get to see them afterward because my parents were pissed that my grandparents humiliated them. Casey was arrested at school a few weeks before graduation. It was coming for over a year because everyone started to see her for who she was. But some of the things she did include stealing money from a teacher, property damage to the school, property damage to a teacher's car, and harassment of one of the teachers. Charges were pressed and she's going to be in court over this. My parents are so mad that people are blaming their precious little girl. Casey got arrested again in July because she retaliated against two of the teachers involved. My parents are hiring good lawyers and all that, but they're also on my back about not supporting Casey, and she's still accusing me of stuff and they still believe her. On Saturday they started yelling at me for being so bad and such a headache for them. I reminded them that Casey, their favorite daughter, is the criminal and not me. My parents yelled so loud that a neighbor heard them. They told me I should not be gloating when my sister is going through hell. Am I the a-hole?
Not the a-hole. I am so sorry you are dealing with this, and have been dealing with this for so long. Could this possibly be the opportunity you need to get out? Are your grandparents still willing to take you in? Could you frame it to your parents that it's obvious that Casey needs all of their attention and help right now, and you'd be willing to step back and move in temporarily, don't say permanently, with your grandparents to allow them to focus all their energy on dear Casey? Clearly you are causing them more stress right now, wink wink, and you don't want to take anything away from your sister at a time when she so desperately needs your parents' full efforts. It might work.
I don't think so, because then they take away Casey's chance to bully me, and their own. I think they like doing it after all these years and all the crazy stuff they have punished me for that I didn't do.
Yikes. I am sorry. I wish I had a more constructive solution to give you, but it sounds like you might just have to tough it out for 2 more years. Maybe Casey will get some jail time and give you some peace, but more likely with first offenses and a good lawyer she's apt to be put into some kind of diversion program instead.
OP needs to move away, otherwise the basket case will make it even tougher for her when she is out.
Absolutely not the a-hole, and you honestly never could be. Sadly, I think your parents are so deluded by the pedestal that they have put your sister on that they probably won't even realize what they've really done until 1, your sister is put in jail, or 2, you don't talk to them anymore. They created a monster that now everyone else has to deal with, including you. As soon as you possibly can, leave them like a fart in the wind and go no contact. Just based off of this post alone, they don't deserve to have you as a daughter because they are terrible parents. I hope you are able to find the support and love you deserve.
Thanks. I got some support going back to school after summer. I was actually called in and talked to by our school therapist, who reassured me I would not be blamed for the things Casey did.
Thank God for that, because you really shouldn't be blamed for the things Casey did. The only people who should be blamed are your parents for enabling your sister to act like, well, the devil himself. I'm glad there's people around you who are not delusional like your parents and see you have no part in your sister's terrible behavior.
Am I the a-hole for cutting the amount I contribute to our budget after my wife refused to stick to our agreement regarding our kids? My wife and I agreed before we got married on a lot of the big things. Where we would live, how we would deal with our families, how we would raise our kids. Stuff like that. Deal breakers. One of our decisions was that as long as our kids were full-time students, then they would not have to contribute monetarily to the household budget. Obviously, they would still have chores and such. If they weren't full-time students, then they would get a 6-month grace period after which they had to pay rent and buy their own food. Rent would be equal to 1/4 of full-time minimum wage work. We agreed on this in 1998. Our eldest did not want to go to university and used the 6 months after graduation to work, save money, and plan a trip around the world. When he got back, he started an apprenticeship and is now a welder. Our middle kid went to university and is now a nurse. Our youngest did 1 semester of college and decided it wasn't for him. He also decided that he didn't want to work. After 6 months, I told him that he was now responsible for his rent and food budget. He went crying to his mom saying that he couldn't afford that. She said he didn't have to pay. She didn't discuss it with me first. It was a unilateral decision on her part. She pays all our bills. I give her a set amount every month to pay for everything. The money she earns, she either spends however she wants or it goes into our vacation fund. So I decided to cut my contribution to our budget by the cost of rent and 1/3 of our grocery bill. She asked me why I did that, and I said that we hadn't agreed that she chose to ignore, so I did the same. She has been paying the difference out of the money that would normally go into our vacation account, and she cut back on her personal spending. But she is pissed that I am doing this. She says I'm an a-hole for being financially manipulative. I think she needs to either accept it or get her poor baby to grow up. She tried getting our older kids on her side, but they agree with me. Am I the a-hole?
Not the a-hole. The other two got tough love. Why baby gets away with it. Favoritism sucks.
There was no tough love. The 2 older ones knew the deal and both did great on their own. The welder lived at home for his entire apprenticeship and only paid 1/4 of minimum wage, not of what he was earning. He saved up for those years and bought a house. My daughter still lives at home and pays 1/4 of minimum wage, not what a registered nurse earns.
This is going to harm your youngest son. Sounds like he needs a push to get started on something. Not working at all with 0 bills is going to cause him to stagnate and honestly, probably end up depressed.
Never treat one kid different. If the agreement's still reasonable and worked for 2 out of 3, the youngest needs to fall in line. Mom is going to harm the youngest.
Info. Did you tell your son at the beginning of the 6 months he would be responsible for rent and food? Is there anything going on with him to cause him not to work? Is he depressed or mentally ill?
All our kids knew the deal since they started middle school. He is not mentally ill.
Then you're not the a-hole at all. Personally, I would charge him rent unless you're paying rent, at which point he should pitch in like an adult. In today's economy, even compared to 2019, it's a lot harder to get ahead, so helping him put together a budget and a savings plan with the money he'd have paid in rent will help him. This, however, will change how your relationship with him looks, as if you are not providing for him in terms of food and shelter, you aren't owed paternal respect in the same way. It also then extends to, what if your oldest 2 get evicted? Because in that scenario, they owe you rent too, and if they don't pay rent in that time, then you are playing favorites. I would pause and think about the implications of charging your son rent, but you aren't an a-hole for keeping to an agreement that he knew of well in advance.
A good solution I've seen is the rent money goes into a separate account that the kid gets back as a lump sum when they move out. It teaches them fiscal responsibility and parents get to parent. Win-win.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos.